All right, there we go. Hello. Okay. So I'm going to start by saying that I was not ready for this really. I don't know why I offered to stand up and do this now. Yay. So this is actually a talk that I gave last year, around halfway through the year after Microsoft Build. And it was when, does it cut out there? Did that just cut out? No? Can you still hear me through the thing? Yep. All right, cool. That was when Semantic Kernel had been around for a while, but mostly it was pretty cool and new, and also they had just released Phi 3. And so then cycle forward to now, and I was thinking that I would do this as a workshop, so I'm delivering something like this as a workshop in a little while at another conference. And so I thought I'd just go ahead and delete half of my slides and turn it into this now. So as a result, also, a lot of what we're going to go through here, you've already heard, and I'm not going to repeat it all for you, which means this probably won't go for 30 minutes. So a quick overview of the terms that we've mostly already talked about. SLMs, so we've spoken about LLMs, which is your large language models. SLMs are small language models. So these are basically smaller models that you can run even on your local machine. And for example, I just mentioned Phi 3 before. So around halfway through last year, Microsoft released Phi 3 Mini. And so the cool thing with that was that you could run it literally on your computer. It was a very small model. They've now got Phi 4 Mini. I did try to get a quick demo running, but in the last 5 minutes, I discovered that it didn't run well at the moment on my computer. So I can't do that. AI Foundry, we've already spoken about a couple of times tonight. And what I'm going to show you is actually using AI Foundry to spin up a model and use it to make our own personal assistant. I didn't even say what the talk was called. We're going to create our own personal assistant with Semantic Kernel tonight. So context window and tokens, this is about the usage of your models. And these are things that you need to look out for, of course, also when you're playing with them to make sure that you're not reaching your quotas, your limits, and also that's what you basically pay for. So, so when you are looking at tokens, it could be a word, but it could be a digit or a symbol. It really does depend on the thing. So it's probably a good idea once you start stepping off the free plans or the cheap plans to make sure that you know what you're looking at. And then we also spoke about RAG, which is your retrieval augmented generation. And I've got a few more definitions here that we've also gone through mostly tonight. So we've spoken about agents already. So agents being basically AI that runs things. So there are really two types of agent type things that they can do. They can use RAG to take knowledge and extend their knowledge and get smarter and help you get to your answer. Or they can run things for you, which are the actions that we've spoken about a bit tonight. So the term plugins, when we're talking about in the semantic kernel, and I think just in the AI world in general, plugins are things that are, you plug into semantic kernel, for example, to do those actions that you want it to do as an agent. And then we've got planning. So there was a term that some of you might have heard in the past, which is planners. So back in the earlier days of semantic kernel, you used planners to do to run through steps. So you could create planners so that the AI model knew that if I, for example, said I want you to send an email, the planner told it how to run that and what to call and what to do to, like you would need to get I need you to get an email address, I need you to get a subject, and I need you to send a body and all the rest. And then you would help it to learn how to do the thing. These days, semantic kernel has all of that's been replaced with what we call function calling. So function calling is where the AI, you tell the AI that you've got a plugin, and it works out based on your descriptions how to call that function, how to do the thing. So we're going to build our own Javas tonight. No, not really, but that will be really cool. And that's where I think we're getting to with this really quickly. But what we are looking at is building, starting to build out something that could become your personal assistant. And pretty quickly you start to see how you could use it, especially if you hooked up voice to it. You could get it to do your biddings in the morning, for example, while you're getting ready, talk to this thing and get it to do some of those early morning things that you need it to do, just like they do in Marvel movies. So you could be running this locally. For example, you can run your models locally using Ollama or LM Studio. You could run those using small language models. As I said, I did actually, like literally you can install Ollama on your computer within like 2 or 3 minutes, install or add a model and start talking to it like within a couple of more minutes, as quickly as you can download a few gig worth of model. Oddly enough, I've got a brand new Snapdragon system here, a Copilot laptop, and it was running it very slowly. So I'm not going to demo that tonight because I know that's not realistic. Because even on my old machine, I was able to talk very efficiently with my with the models and get it to generate content, get it to do everything that you're going to see me do here tonight. But yeah, for some reason it's not playing here. But my plan all along anyway was to do it in the cloud, which means using AI Foundry, which is from Microsoft. We've got OpenAI, also have APIs for this sort of stuff. There's solutions from Google and Amazon and everybody as well. So it looks like I've cut out some of my notes, so I can't go through exactly all of them. But yeah, that's... So Semantic Kernel. How many people do know what Semantic Kernel is? 1, awesome, 2, 3, cool, awesome. All right, 4, 5. Well, yes, I expect some of you to know. So Semantic Kernel is an SDK, software development kit for .NET, Python, and Java. It's from Microsoft. I can't believe I failed to have Microsoft written anywhere on this slide, actually, except for in the Learn. But yeah, it is a Microsoft SDK, and it allows you to work with language models and build apps. So a lot of the stuff that you'd see in your Copilot Studio or in AI Foundry, even with the playgrounds and stuff, is doing it all without writing the code yourself. But this allows us to write that code very quickly and get something up and running. And then you can use extensions to connect with Ollama or LM Studio, OpenAI, etc. And yeah, that link there, if you want to have a look. The Learn documentation is really great. In fact, a lot of what I'm going to do now comes from the Learn documentation with some little added bits onto it. I won't go through responsible AI because we've just had a wonderful talk about that. But yeah, needless to say, think about your limitations, your rules that you want to set on your AI, and do prompt engineering with your system to make sure that it knows its boundaries. Make sure that it knows not to step outside. For example, if you don't want it to, if you've got it looking at the internet for information and you don't want it to give information about competitors of yours, then tell it that. If you, I'll show you in my code some of the things that I've specifically added in to make sure that it keeps on track. But yeah, I've kind of kept this mostly open because I want it to be a personal assistant that I can ask all sorts of things of. Okay. Oh, I'm missing a slide. Yeah, done. Woo! We're not done. You're all staying. No, demo time. Okay, so I have to share my screen. What's the shortcut? Anybody? Windows S. Now, I do this every time.
That was your background, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's my background. So.
Yeah, I was like out of the PowerPoint.
You got a new laptop with fancy background
Oh
now.
yeah, totally.
Yeah.
It must be one of these options here at Project.
Isn't it like the little project screen on the F tool?
Yeah, possibly. There we go. Well, there you go. It's working now. There we go. Hey, I'm doing well. Yes. Yeah. Windows K. Okay, here we go. Is that good?
We can
close this.
Light mode if possible.
Yeah.
Control Shift P. The
I do. Theme. Oh, was it? There.
Like, yeah.
There you go.
Yes,
Cool.
we
Can
can
you
see
see
it.
it?
Woo.
Yay! Awesome. See, I was not prepared.
Perfect. Thanks, Bron.
I got. Not showing my thing. Oh, worries. There you go. Okay. So this is my application. So ironically, you could write this application with Copilot. Yay! And you'd probably end up with a lot of the same code as what I've got. But basically running through this application, so forget about all the junk that we don't need, but this is literally just a C# application, and it's just all piled into the program. So what this application does is it starts off with setting up my Azure Open API model data. So I've got a model that I've fired up in Foundry, and so I think I've got that here. Yep, so in AI Foundry, I literally came into AI Foundry and said create a project, and I gave it a name, and I gave it a hub name, and then it went off and created it, and then I deployed a model. So I came into the model catalog, and I deployed a model, which I can't easily show you. And then basically once you've created it, you can come into your project, and here is my model that I've created, GPT-4o, because I thought I'm feeling rich today. So let's see. Now, because of that, I might hit limits really quickly. I already did once tonight. But these two here, these are the key things that we need, your endpoint and your API key. So you copy those and you plug them into your code. Literally just, and the model ID, so GPT-4o. My API key is in a secret because that's always how we do these things. And then I've just got the endpoint here, which is just pasted in. And then I literally just say on my kernel, I add, sorry, I didn't say I've created a kernel builder further up, which is our Semantic Kernel object that I then add Azure OpenAI chat completion into. You'll see here I've got code also for doing the same for LM Studio and Olama. To switch between them, it's almost as simple as just switching that detail there. So if I commented this out and uncommented this and ran it, if I had LM Studio running on my machine, I'd be off and running with a local model. Your miles will vary in terms of your ability to do certain things like the function calling that I'm about to go through, but local models these days can handle auto function calling. So, so it's definitely, that's the next step to get it all offline. Because I've got, thanks to a very excitable husband for everything home automation, we've got a lot of home automation now. And but the number one thing that he always drills in is local, local, local. If you have to go to the cloud, if you can't turn a light on without the cloud, right? If you can't turn the light on without internet, then you've got a problem. So, so then we go into adding our plugins. So I'm jumping ahead a little bit here. Usually I probably wouldn't show this version yet, but I'll jump through past this for now, and I'll come back to the plugins, I promise. So then we've got our prompt here. So this is the key part that sets it up to know what it's here for. So you are a friendly assistant responsible for helping with tasks as a personal assistant. It's a bit wordy, like sending emails. You will complete any required actions and request approval before taking any consequential actions. That's one of those key phrases that can help make sure that things don't happen without you wanting them to. Spoiler alert, it still does it sometimes. So clearly this still needs some work. This is one of those areas where you've got to keep testing and you've got to keep tweaking as you go. The next part here is an example of where I had to build this up because I kept having to do weird stuff. So for example, it was fabricating email addresses. So it literally was hallucinating about who my boss was. If I said send my boss an email, it would just send a random email. Thankfully at that time it wasn't hooked up to SendGrid or any email sender, but it could have been really detrimental. If no email is asked, then ask what is provided, then ask what their email address is, and don't proceed with placeholder content. This one is still hard and this still isn't right. So sometimes it will say you need to give me your boss's name because it will have in square brackets boss name. Sometimes it asks me, sometimes it will still end up happily setting an email that has placeholder text in there. So, and this is just very early on in me getting this ready to demo properly. So that's why things like this are still popping up. So, But always at the end of the day also, I would have some guard code in my functions to say, check that you haven't got this in here still. Check that you've got an email. So, always, as well as making sure that the AI is doing the right thing, make sure you put the guardrails in your own code for that sort of thing as well. Then moving down, we actually get into some, at the heart of it, some very simple code. We've literally just got a while loop that just says, what's your request? It tells OpenAI to use automatic function calling. So this is the function choice behavior of auto, so that it will automatically work out which functions to call as I ask it for things. It takes my request, it sends it off, and it dumps out the result. That's what all of this is doing. And that's it. And that's some really common boilerplate code that you'll see around the place. And it does the job. This is just on a console app. And that's it. So back up to our plugins. I've got a number of plugins here. And as I started playing, this list grew and grew because I was like, oh, wait, I could do this. I could do that. So what's the number one thing, for example, that you want to do with a personal assistant? Send an email. So that was the first thing, obviously. And then I started scaling back and saying, let's start a bit simpler. Like, what if I want to say, have my name in that email, and I don't want to have to tell it what my name is? So that's where I started adding plugins so that it could answer those questions itself. So a plugin is just a function. So this is a class called Personal Details Plugin, and it just has a function called Get Owner Full Name. The information here is the key. I tell the kernel what the name is, and lesson learnt also, having a good descriptive name with underscores, all these things apparently help it to understand what you're doing. And then you give it a description. You are a plugin responsible for sharing information about the user's name. And then I've said what it returns, a string that is the user's name. And then this goes into the configuration and pulls out my name, my full name and last name. Just gross code just to do a code concatenation. And I've also got a short version here that just gets my first name, and that's it. So I've written this code. Now this is similarly, I've got the author email plugin. So this is another function, and do ignore this for now, the generate required steps, because I'm still researching, but I'm pretty sure this does nothing now, even though it could, because this, I believe, is to do with the old planner stuff. But the important one is this send email async. So I've told it that this is a send email function, and this is basically a function that I could already have in my infrastructure code. This is just my standard code that sends an email if you give it a recipient and a subject and a body. But I'm giving it descriptions so that Semantic Kernel knows what those things are and what it should be looking for. I did put this into Do Not Disturb mode, but Teams loves ignoring that. I'm just going to quit Teams. Cool. And yeah, so this is literally going through. Now this is where, though, I put guards in the end, because I was finding that it was calling it even when it didn't have recipients, for example. So I added something in to check that I have valid recipients. I'm expecting a comma separated list, so I split them up, and I check and I throw back responses, and they're just string responses. And then Semantic Kernel knows what that means and handles it from there. Otherwise, it goes through and it sends an email using SendGrid. This is just very plain normal SendGrid API stuff. And then it handles the response. And the important thing is that it says email sent to blah, blah, woot, woot. Now, the reason I put that is because in my experience early on, sometimes it would say it had sent the email, even though it hadn't called my function and it hadn't sent the email. Because again, it basically hallucinated and was like, yeah, sure, I did that. So it's like a bit of a naughty child sometimes. So I added something that I knew specifically meant that I had it call my function. A couple of other things, a date helper. It's one of my fascinations is watching AI try to work out dates, like how many Sundays are there in the next 5 months. It's really bad at it, and it's also really bad at writing code for that. So that's why that one's there. Alarm plugins, light plugins. The light plugin is actually straight off the Learn site at the moment, and an example of how you could be turning lights on and off through your own functions. So you could hook this up with your Home Assistant or something and ask it to turn a light off, and it could do it. I haven't got to that point yet because I keep getting bogged down in the email. And the Public Holidays plugin is a fun one, because the idea of this is it's basically a little bit of it's kind of a RAG thing, and it's kind of an action thing. I'm giving it information about public holidays because this is information that I might already have in my system in a database or something. So I'm just basically saying when you want to get the public holiday, get a list of public holidays, then it can call this. And then if you ask it like what's happening on the 25th of December, it will tell you. And I put some more interesting ones in there that it didn't know about, like Grand Final Parade Day, to check that it was actually returning my data on that. Mixed results with that one at this stage, but yeah. Okay, so to make sure that it's using these functions, simply we say kernel builder plugins, and we just add from type with each of those, and that's it. So I'm going to run this now, and it's all going to run beautifully. I'll turn that off. Okay, and I'm running in debug mode, so there's some junk in there, but it's basically saying, what is your request? So I'm going to say, hello, what's my name? And I do have some breakpoints around the place to make sure. So it's come straight into my function called get owner full name, and it's pulling out my data from my configuration. And I don't know what I just hit. Go away. And it says your name is Bron Thulke. So that's already using my code. So now I'm going to say I need to send an email to my boss. And it asks me what my boss's email address is and what the email should be about. Now I can be really specific here and tell it exactly what I want the subject and body to be, or I can be really high level, and I'm going to do that. So I'm just going to say boss@awd.net.au, which is just a catch-all that I have. Please make it an email about telling him I'll be late to my to the office in the morning. Now, I've had some really interesting conversations with the AI also, where it's even come back and said, how late? How much information do you want me to give? So it's quite fascinating. Again, it really depends though. It depends on the day and where it's at. So right now it's not asking me that, but it is pulling up my short name. So that tells me it's putting some personalized information in there. And now it's in my send email. And we can see here on the left-hand side that we've actually got a subject, a body, and recipients. Notice that it says Dear Boss. So that's interesting, but I'm going to run with it. And it says email sent to boss, woot woot. Email has been successfully sent about being late. So this is it coming in, right? But this is me outputting my actual response from the function, and then it also giving me a response. So things like the boss name, that needs some work to make sure that it says, well, hang on, what's your boss's name? Or put something different in there. But if we come across now to my email, which I knew I had my email open for a reason before. Just ignore all of my crap in there. I have so many emails at the moment in my inbox, it's killing me. There's about 100 emails in there. This is the brand new email here, so I don't even have to use my one I prepared earlier. So this is the email that got sent from me because I've configured my send grid, and so that's all come from me. And just hope this finds you well. I wanted to inform you I'll be late. Now I can manipulate that more. I've had versions where I've told it the tone that I wanted the email. You can put that all in your prompts as well. So I could have put that straight into my request too. So that's pretty much it.
Setting it up for like paragraphing and style. And
Sometimes it does that anyway. So I haven't done that explicitly, but I've had times where it has put some extra paragraphs in, more so when I say make it have a professional tone because it goes into more detail. But I'm assuming that I could also do that in my function by telling it how I want that layout to be. Like literally I could just say, this is an example email, right?
So
and
you
then
can have a bunch of say,
Yeah.
like, this
Yeah.
is my fun tone, this is my corporate
Yeah,
tone.
that's true.
So please send email in corporate tone.
Yes.
And you can have that function there, right?
Exactly. And I could probably actually, if I added an input to a parameter to this that said tone, and I could make that a requirement so that it would say to me. Now, if we say now send one to John, can you provide John's email address and what the email should be about? john@awd.net.au. And it's like, well, I still need more information. So it's not going into that function until it's got what it needs. And that's something that I was struggling with for a while. And different models also obviously react differently. I've had some models that have just made information up, as I said. Or I've had times where it's ended up in this function without any of these being provided. So it called it prematurely. And then the other thing that I also have done with this is I've tried to throw some stuff at it, and this is where the responsible AI comes into it. I have tried to throw stuff at it that I shouldn't get it to do, like tell him about how to make a bomb. And it's thrown an exception, a 400 exception. So that's actually quite drastic, because usually it just comes up and says, no, I'm not going to do that. But yeah, that's actually really unhappy. The response was filtered due to prompt triggering OpenAI's content management policy. I just got flagged. It's been nice knowing you all. So making sure that it can't do dodgy things is important, and making sure, yeah, especially with personal assistant stuff also, like making sure that it's not going to do things that could put you in a bad light because it's acting on your behalf. So anyway, so that's pretty much my time. But did anybody have any questions quickly about it? Yeah?
Did you handle this exception, the one that was shown?
Sorry?
Did you handle this exception?
I'm not handling it at the moment, but I could and I should. I should have just a simple try catch in there, because it just threw back a 400 error from OpenAI, because that one was apparently way too hard. Like I'm sure in this one I've seen it throw back, just say to me, I'm not going to do that. But that's actually literally like thrown an exception this time. So the AI hasn't even allowed a response to come back. So yeah.
It's already integrated with the OpenAI, it's throwing this exception, or?
Yeah, it was the OpenAI. The call to OpenAI just threw back a 400 bad request. Yeah.
You are going to block it.
Sorry?
Yeah, you're going to be blocked now.
I know, totally. Yeah. Fuck. Yeah.
And the language that you are using,
That's okay.
the language that you are using, like, is it C?
This is C Sharp. Yeah. Yeah. Everything here is C Sharp. Yeah.
Can you use a different language? Like
You can.
Java?
You can use Java and Python as well. Yeah.
It was easy to understand, thank you.
Ah, you're welcome. Thanks.
The plugins that you have, they are like the holidays and all that. Can they be actually extended the like services to get actual holidays live rather than
Yeah. Absolutely. In fact, like, it's your code, so you could do whatever you like, and there would be third-party things out there as well, of course.
follow-up question on that is like rather than you doing like asking that general again and again if they're a properly configured class or whatever, wouldn't there be any libraries that is actually having all this?
Yeah.
Lots of libraries with all this pre-configured.
So there will be a growing list out there of plugins that you can use, and this time plugin is an example of that actually. So this was a nice hack time plugin, and I think the date helpers was as well. I don't think no, that one isn't mine. But the time plugin is actually you can see there's Semantic Kernel plugins core. And so that actually helps you get it to do stuff about time. So if I run this again, we can just ask it, what time is it? I think that's the sort of question that it can do. Yep, it's 8:33. And ordinarily it wouldn't be able to do that because it doesn't know what real time is. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Any other questions? Yeah, cool, awesome. Well, you all know what's coming. That. And I can't make it go, I'm not going to stuff around. Thanks. If anybody wants access to that code to start with, I do actually have a QR, it's just not on here. So I have a GitHub already, so come up and I can give it to you. Yeah, thanks everybody.
Thank you, Bron.